Kia ora koutou katoa, nau mai hara mai ki te ao Hākinakina, your sports show right here on your Tribal Pulse, te Korimako o Taranaki, 94.8 FM and 98.4 FM. Well, he is a proud rugby league man whose journey has taken him from grassroots footy at home right through to Australia, professional systems, premiership wins, and now back home giving back to the next generation. We're going to kōrero about where it all began, the lessons along the way, and what rugby league looks like for him now. No mai hara mai, Linton Price. Welcome to the show, brother.
Kia ora, bro. Pleasure to be on the show.
Awesome, bro. Hey, good to have you. And you're pretty committed, all right? He's at training at the moment, but I know he's sitting in the car. He's just tucked off for a quick interview. Pretty cool, all right? Pretty cool. But hey, before we get started, just ko wai koe, no he koe, a bit about yourself, where you were brought up and what life was like for you growing up.
Ka whai, ko au, hiuri tēnei no te taitonga o Taranaki, ko ngā tirunui, ko ngā rauru, ko ngā ruahine, I whānau mai I tipuaki au I te hāwera, taino atu ki te tau 2001, ka hunuku au ki Ahitereiria, I noho au I reira, ka hunuku mātou ko te whānau I te rātu tau. He oi, ka huri au te reo Pākehā. So yeah, so from Taranaki, born and bred in Hāwera, moved over to Aussie 2006, and then we moved home, my family and I moved home at the end of 2024. So yeah, it's awesome.
Awesome, bro. Awesome. Well, hey, it's awesome to have you home, and we're going to kōrero more to your journey to Australia shortly. But, you know, for you as a young fella, you know, where were you brought up and what sports did you play as a kid, and how did rugby league kind of became your sport of choice?
Yeah, so it all sort of began. I actually started out at the Hāwera Hawks. My old man sort of took me there, and you know, like most kids from around this area, we were in a very well-off family, so sports was very limited, so we could only really play one sport at a time, and I was very lucky to have lots of family and friends around me that sort of helped me get to trainings and all those sorts of things. So I was always a pretty talented young fella. You know, I was a younger brother of two older brothers, so you know, they always put me through my paces, never let me win anything. So I always had to work really hard from a young age, and yeah, just sort of started there. And then yeah, there was a really good sort of system at the time. As you got through the grades, we sort of, you know, we had the Sharks and Taranaki representatives and all that sort of stuff, and then it sort of rolled into, we had I'm sort of fast forwarding to like sort of under 15s age now, and back then we had the NJC competition, which was awesome. You know, that was all the provinces all over New Zealand got to play against each other. Something that I'm not sure if it's still happening, but it was awesome when we were young fellas, and that sort of trend. I was there for a couple of years, and then it went up to 18s, and then obviously moved on to barter card, and yeah, so it just sort of slowly sort of snowballed up as I got older.
Beautiful, beautiful. Some would have been some good times there in the representative footy. But who were some of the kind of key instrumental figures in your journey through rugby league as a young rangatahi, coming through those grades, through those representative teams that really kind of, I suppose, helped lay the foundations for you, not only in the game but as a young man?
Yeah. There's quite a lot of names. I guess for myself personally, it was sort of once I got to about the under 15s age, so I was sort of, you know, I grew up quite fast. So I haven't grown since I was about 10, 11 years old, so I sort of had to go through a transition phase. Sort of as I got older, everyone else got bigger than me, so I started out in the forwards and then slowly had to move into, you know, I think I ended up on the wing at one point, and just sort of my uncle Jim, he was pretty instrumental to the Northland Rugby League. He sort of helped guide me through all those sort of changes that I had to make, you know, going from a forward, then all of a sudden I'm finding myself on the wing, trying to make my name in a completely different position. He also had another guy, Daryl Dockery, who was a great strength and conditioning coach, and it was sort of when I got introduced to sort of speed and weights and the importance of strength and I guess plyometrics and all those sorts of things, and that really sort of skyrocketed my transition, because not long after that I ended up transitioning into hooker, where I stayed for the rest of my career.
Wow, yeah, well, you're not a bad hooker, that's for sure. So we'll talk more about that soon too. But after that, after your representative career as a young fella, you headed over to Australia. Like, how did the move to Australia kind of come about, and what was that transition like, leaving home to chase your rugby league dream?
Yeah, so it sort of it was off the back of the success I had once I transitioned. So ended up going straight into the junior Kiwis and all those sorts of things. And in those days, it was sort of scouts would come to your game. It was sort of, you had to play every game like someone was watching you. Because if you didn't play well, they'd sort of just walk away and say, "Oh, maybe next time." And that was sort of what happened. So I played really well throughout the year and through that campaign, and then unfortunately I suffered a broken hand at the time, had to get surgery, and that sort of slowed my progress. So I was sort of in line to get a contract. Didn't really happen, and I ended up going with the West Tigers. So it was sort of like a train and trial sort of deal when I went there. But yeah, it was still amazing. Still got to go there and train with the top guys, train with the NRL players, and just got to mix it with the best of the best. Yeah, that was sort of how that happened, and I sort of had to earn my contract.
Beautiful, beautiful. Did it the hard road, but hey, keen to kōrero about that journey while you're over there, because you had a massive career over in Australia, and we're going to talk to that soon, whānau. So make sure to stay tuned. We're going to go to a short break. Kia ora koutou whānau, welcome back to Te Ao Hākinakina. We're having an awesome kōrero here with Linton Price about his amazing journey in footy and rugby league. Now, we were speaking about your time at the West Tigers. What did your time at the West Tigers, and then I believe you went on to the Canterbury Bulldogs, represented in the 20s and New South Wales Cup. But what did that teach you about, like, professionalism and the importance of discipline and resilience and stuff?
Oh, it was huge. I thought I was a hard trainer, and then when I got there our first week, I couldn't walk. Honestly, I spent the whole weekend like on my bed. I couldn't move. It was just a whole nother level. The weights were way heavier. We did way more explosive, way more fitness, and I think that was sort of what opened my eyes to the level I needed to get to in order to be successful while I was there. So my first preseason was a really, really tough one. Yeah, a lot of soul searching throughout that preseason.
Oh, I bet. Well, you went on to play for quite a number of clubs: the Northern Storm, JKs, Leeton Greenies, Winner Manly as well. You also come home with Ngātoa, Te Raki, and now you're playing for the Hawks. But looking back on your experiences, and premierships, what kind of stands out the most for you, and why?
I think for me, honestly, I think it's the Ngātoa premiership. That one, because I had been competing in that competition since I was 17 years old, and it took me till I was 35 to actually win one. So it was. I still remember my cousin. He was only a baby when he first came and watched me there, and he came and watched me on that particular week, and he was 18 years old. So it was a big one.
Wow, yeah, it's a pretty prestigious tournament, playing against some pretty prestigious players. So I remember that tournament. I was watching that final. But hey, coming full circle, like now that you're home, what's it been like being back around whānau community and playing and contributing to the game and locally again?
Oh, it's been awesome, mate. Look, I never intended on coming back and playing. It was always just to come back and sort of help sort of progress the young fellas that we got around. And it's been amazing, just being a part of it all. And I've always sort of thought, that there's no point going and doing all these things in rugby league if you're not going to go and then pass it on to somebody else. They can learn from all my mistakes, because there's been plenty of those, and just help guide. And a lot of these young ones don't realise how lucky they are these days. It wasn't normal to have lots of mentors around. Sort of back in the days, it was sort of something that was only just starting to happen when I was going through the system. We're only just starting to have, I guess, people that would check up on you and make sure you're okay. But you look at today's sort of world, they're everywhere. You got so many guidance counsellors and things like that, and just being able to give back is something that I've always wanted to do. I still remember, I think I was only about 18. I came back home and I just had I stood up I can't even remember what it was. I stood up in front of a few troubled youths, and I just spoke about my dreams, to come home and one day give back and spend time with my nan, and and that's finally come into fruition now.
Beautiful, bro. Well, it's an absolute pleasure having you back and a part of the game, that's for sure. Now, just recently, you won a Lyle Shield with your junior club, and now you're coaching in the juniors. What kind of drives you, to give back to the club that gave so much to you? Like, it must be a pretty proud moment to be able to lift that Lyle Shield alongside, your brothers and your community, and to see the rangatahi and the tamariki see that in action.
Oh, definitely. It was, I still remember sitting at work watching the Hawkies do it 2 in a row. I think it was only 3 years ago when they did that. And, so for me, this was a 3-year plan. It was something that had been ticking over in my brain from the moment I watched them win that one. So, for me, even with our team that took it out this year, the system that's in place has been in place for the last 5 years. So it sort of made it really easy to come in and coach, because we didn't really have to change too much. We knew what pieces we needed in order for it to work, and we were just lucky that we had some young guys really step up this year, and they turned themselves into those pieces we needed. As you know, a lot of teams have a bit of a, players come and go, and you just got to deal with it. And I think last year we were really good. We just sort of, we lost in the semis to Waitara, so and they beat us right at the end. So it was good to get one back. But yeah, it comes down to the guys that already laid that platform. Guys like Brendan Hikaka, Brent Aston Landers, and Quinton Needham. Like, those boys all sort of set the foundation, and we've just sort of been able to continue the proven success that they've already set.
100%. And you mentioned you got some really good young talent coming through down there in Taranaki ki Tonga. And we often hear about, like, no journey is done alone. And, those names you mentioned, Brendan Hikaka and Brent Aston Landers, they play a massive part in terms of that success down there as well. So kudos to them. But what are your hopes and aspirations moving forward? Not only for yourself, but for rugby league back home here in Taranaki and in Taranaki ki Tonga and Hāwera?
I just think, to be honest, just to have a thriving competition for our kids to keep progressing into. As you know, there's a bit of a lull once we get above the sort of under 16 age. To have a thriving competition for kids to stay in our league systems would be fantastic. We do tend to lose a lot of those kids to rugby, which it happens. But just to have a platform there for our kids to keep pushing through, and they are going to get noticed. We've got a lot of young kids that are going through the STARS system that are getting noticed and getting contracts, and so it's something that I sort of learnt young was treat every game like somebody's coming there to watch you, and to have that would be great. And then obviously we could progress them straight through to Prems as well. And then I guess for the Hawkies, so just being a club that can provide all of these things for these kids. My dream would be to have every team from the bottom to the top that would be a dream come true for me as a club for Hāwera Hawks.
Awesome, bro. Well, hey, thank you for sharing your journey with us, you know, from the local fields of Hāwera all the way to Australia and back home again. It's clear that rugby league means so much more to you than just a game. And we appreciate the mahi you're doing and giving back to our tamariki and our rangatei, you and B-Man and the likes, and to all of our whānau and Taranaki ki Tonga who keep holding the fort down there for our great game. So wishing you all the best on the next part of your journey, brother.
Me. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.